Last time we were able to create the user record. That means we inserted a value for the user. So this time we're going to update the record that we have, and we're going to update the user with the ID number 6. If you go through here, we can see that this user we created in the last video. So we're going to update it to have a new username, first name and last name, and we expect that the update would reflect that. So let's open this up here, and we're going to our user file.py, and this is where we have the update method. So we're expecting an ID with parameters, and if you can see, as you can see here, we see the ID. We want to update user with ID number 6, and these are the remaining parameters which will change to. So as usual, we expect a connection, and we're going to use the try except catch, and we're going to set the updated at now to the current time or the current date, and that's why we have this. So and you know what this means is that we're changing the time to string and slicing it. So we only need the year, the month, and the day. Then afterwards, we are going to set the user. So we're calling this method up here, and we're taking the values and setting the class attributes. So that's what we have here. So we'll take this ID and store that as the ID. Then the user will get from the params. So using the key, we'll get the value of the user name, which is this, and that of the first name and last name, and the updated at, which is what we get from here. Then we'll use context manager to create the cursor from the collection con.cursor, and now we'll run our query, and our query says update the users table and set the username, and this is the first variable we're creating here, first name with the second, last name with the third, updated at with the fourth, where ID with the fifth variable. So let's take note of that. And now we have values. The values, the first username is going to get from what we saved it as, that's the username, and that of the first name the same, last name. So this is going to take this last name, and updated at is going to take updated at, and where ID is going to take this. So what we should have done here is also to make it lowercase. So we'll say lower, here lower, and here dot lower, and the last name dot lower, because I want everything in the database to be lowercase. Yes, in the table to be lowercase. So I think this is fine. User updated at, and now this ID is from what we fed it, taking the ID here. So it's going to now execute that, the query values, and it's going to commit the connection. So at the end of the day, it's going to say record updated successfully and return true, and it take any exception, and also it will close the connection. So that's the Python script for doing that. So we're going to test that, and if you come here, you can see that we have the ID, the username given, the first name and last name. So let's run it. And now it says record updated successfully. So let's go and check that out. So we'll open this up, and as usual, we'll refresh the server and come down to where we have our tables and user tables, and let's view that. And now you can see it has changed that Omeata to Mshon, and the first name Michael, last name Sean, and is if it's given today's day, assuming we're in the next day, it will give the next day. Yeah. So that's basically how to update the user in the database table.